Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Where Does It Come From podcast. Today, we're moving into the beauty industry, self-care industry, and I have with me a long-term friend, colleague, Sue Campbell from Kind2, who's going to talk to us all about solid shampoos and conditioners and everything else that comes along in that area. So welcome, Sue.
Thanks very much, Joe. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm Sue Campbell. I'm the founder of Kind2, and we're an award-winning brand of solid hair care for humans and, more recently, for dogs.
Yeah, that made me really interested when I saw that one. I mean, I've been using Kind2 conditioner for years and years now, so the audience watching this can judge whether my hair looks nice or not, but don't tell me if you think it looks awful.
It
But
looks lovely.
thank you. This is, well, we'll get into a bit further. This is a week in, to be honest, so it's not exactly freshly washed, but anyway, before we talk about my hair, I think everyone would love to know about how you got into this, Sue. What's your background? What's your journey?
Sure. So I guess we'll start by saying I'm not a chemist, and I'm not somebody who has a background in the beauty industry. I saw a problem, and that problem being plastic pollution, and I was really motivated to do something about it. And the reason I was so motivated is because I could see it affecting my everyday life, and became much more aware of it when I lived and worked in Hong Kong. I was living in Hong Kong, working across the region, traveled an enormous amount in Asia. And as many people probably know, a lot of our plastic waste here actually gets exported to developing countries who don't necessarily have the infrastructure that we have to process it. And as a consequence, a huge amount of it ends up in the ocean. And anyone who lives by the sea is probably well aware of it. But certainly for me, seeing it literally in very pristine, beautiful environments all over Asia changed my perspective on the problem and the fact that recycling wasn't really working. And so I thought I would rather be part of the solution than just do my tiny little bit that I thought was making a difference, make a difference on a bigger scale with a business that actually could transform the world of hair care.
So how did you go about that then? So you had this great idea. I mean, do you remember probably 20 years ago, there was adverts saying, take 2 bottles into the shower. Now you can take 1 bottle into the shower. But now we take no bottles into the shower. And isn't it lovely to have no bottles in the shower? It's
Oh, my shower looks so clean and beautiful.
exactly. You don't have all these different things and spillages and all of that. But so what got you from, I've got this great idea, to actually making that happen? Because it's always the entrepreneurial thing of taking that step, isn't it?
Yeah. So I didn't necessarily think hair care initially. What I thought was I want to be involved in either a movement or a business that actually changes the way people use single-use plastic. So I joined a couple of Facebook groups. This is sort of back in 2018. In the UK is quite a number of sort of sustainable Facebook groups, and I looked at what people were chatting about, the problems that they were sharing, the solutions that people were offering, and I kept seeing a recurring theme about shampoo bars. So clearly, the people in this group, they're obviously early adopters. They were wanting to make a change to the way in which they wash their hair. They wanted to reduce single-use plastic. They were buying the shampoo bars that were available on the market at the time, but their experiences were, well, frankly, not that great. And so a lot of what I was reading about was how people were finding that left their hair feeling stiff, lank, greasy. Then there was discussions, of course, about vinegar rinse, which some people may have heard of. And so it started to dawn on me that there was clearly a motivation to make the change, but there wasn't products on the market that addressed the change in a way that felt like it was a zero compromise. And I think if you're trying to influence people and get them to change to maybe a more sustainable product, then you need to be able to convince them it's going to be as good as, if not better than what they're using now. Otherwise, they're simply not going to do it. And so having read that the shampoo bars were a disappointment on the whole back in 2018, I thought there's got to be a better way. So I started doing a lot more research, and I learned that actually those shampoo bars were largely made from soap, and soap is too alkaline, and the alkalinity with the hard water is a terrible combination, which typically makes your hair dry. So I thought, I'm not a chemist, like I said at the outset. I need somebody to help me. And so I started a journey of trying to find a cosmetic scientist who would work with me to develop a solid hair care bar, and I'm talking shampoo and conditioner, that would mimic exactly the same effect as what you get when you buy a bottle of liquid shampoo. And my career actually is in recruitment, so I'm not afraid of cold calling. I literally started with a Google search, got on the phone and started calling and emailing people until eventually I teamed up with a fabulous cosmetic scientist who'd done a lot of hair care development. She'd never done a solid shampoo or conditioner before, but she'd done a lot of liquid shampoo and conditioner. So she really understood what we needed to do. And I guess that was the beginning of the process of formulation, which then led on to manufacturing. Of course, I could just keep talking, so you probably need to interrupt me to stop
No,
me.
it's fascinating. It's really fascinating. So I've got these questions in my mind about that. So obviously it's much more simple than just draining out the water. But you know, there's so many things to be concerned about or to think about. You've obviously got how long will it last? You know, if you don't want it going mushy in the shower, you know, there's issues around perfumes and non-perfumes and all of those kind of things that I'm just imagining the kinds of things my listeners will be thinking about.
Yeah. So working with the cosmetic scientist, I'd done quite a bit of research, obviously, before I got to the point where I agreed somebody, and I had a long list of things that I wanted not included, and a long list of things that I actually wanted the product to be able to do. And so the things that I didn't want to have included included synthetic colors and synthetic fragrances, largely because they are mostly derived from fossil fuels. So it seems if you're trying to create a product that is plastic free, it seems a bit of an anomaly, really, isn't it? Hypocritical to then use those synthetics. I didn't want to use palm oil. Palm oil obviously linked to deforestation, and really there is no need to use palm oil in a product like a shampoo or conditioner bar, because there actually are much better oils that you could use that actually have benefits for the hair, whereas palm oil is typically used just as a filler or a lubricant. So we had a big long list of those things that the not includes, but we also wanted to make sure that we were using what we describe as sort of premium plant-based ingredients, things that actually have efficacy when it comes to hair. So we're talking about argan oil, macadamia oil, shea butter, coconut oil, etc. And you're right, can't have it dissolve and go mushy. It's got to, in an ambient temperature, be solid. So it's got to have the right combination of basically sort of oils, waxes, and powders. Foaming in hard water, that can be a bit of a challenge. So that needs to have the right amount of surfactant, which is the foaming cleansing agent. And I guess we did a bit of research. There were some brands around at that time, but not very many. I tried a few of them just to sort of see how they performed, etc. And then we settled on a bar that would be equivalent to roughly 2 bottles of shampoo. Because if you get a shampoo bar and it's honestly like, you know, the size of a 20-cent piece, it might be relatively inexpensive, but it's not going to last very long. And if you're trying to be sustainable, you want a product that is also long lasting. And when we reached the size that we came up with was the 85-gram bars. They fit neatly in your hand. And then they also last as long as the 2 bottles of shampoo. So somebody feels like they're getting a good value for money product as well, because they're not necessarily having to wash their hair as often. And they're actually finding that it lasts, you know, in some cases, kind of 3 to 6 months. Some people say the conditioner does last 6 months. It certainly lasts me that long.
Lasts me a year. I'm a terrible customer of yours because I probably only buy one once a year. But yeah, I think that's all really interesting. And I think I would urge anybody listening to take those points on board, because, and I can back them up as a customer, and Sue's obviously not paying me to say this. In fact, I'm paying her for the conditioner. So I think I find that I wash my hair a lot less often with these products, and yeah, I think they last ever such a long time. I mean, I ordered one recently because it's getting a bit small, and I agree with you, I like to have a handful, and for conditioner in particular, I'm doing that with it. So you don't want a little tiny bar, you know, you want something a decent size, but they last absolutely ages. And because you're washing your hair less frequently, and I also wash it now not because it's getting greasy, but just because I think, okay, I could do with a wash now, I could do with a perk up, rather than you know, I feel like an advert here, but this is a week. I washed it last Monday because I went
Wow.
to exercise class on a Monday, and then I wash it after that. So I do shower in between, everyone, but I do wash my hair.
Good to know.
Yeah, good to know. No, not that minging, but yeah. So it's I would definitely go along with your hair lasts longer between washes for sure. Yeah, I think the soapiness, as in the foaminess, is an interesting point, isn't it? Different water areas have different. You don't want it to go,
Yeah.
and at the same time, you want it to be foamy enough.
Yeah, to be able to lather. And it's interesting that, you know, often if we do things like sort of sustainability shows, sometimes we do kind of in-person markets and so on, we talk to, you know, customers, potential customers. One of the concerns that people often have is that a shampoo bar won't lather. And I think we have been conditioned, for want of a better word, psychologically to think that, you know, in order for a shampoo to be effective, you must have like mountains and mountains of lather. You know, sort of, and that advertising is actually, it's kind of untrue, because lather doesn't necessarily mean it's cleaning. It's a nice feeling, I know, to have the lather, but you don't need to have mountains and mountains of it. And in actual fact, if it is incredibly lathery, it often means it's a really harsh product with a huge amount of detergent, which is stripping your hair, which is not good for your hair or your scalp anyway. But yeah, I think it's really interesting that a couple of facts when I shared with people about shampoo in liquid form. Now, obviously, it's in a single-use plastic bottle. You know, everybody gets that. But when I say, do you realise that that's 80%, maybe even 90% in the case of a relatively inexpensive shampoo, water? 80% water. You are buying a bottle of water with a really small amount of product in it. Mental.
Yeah.
In a situation that you use it in where you have water available. And then there's actually something else. I failed to mention it on the list of not things not in the product, but commonly in shampoo and conditioner, there are plastics in the formulation in the form of silicons. So it's something that I would say very few people really know. And I mean, let's face it, prior to me doing this, I never read with a lot of interest. I might have scanned the list of ingredients of a product, probably didn't really know what most of them meant. And certainly, yeah, I just didn't really know enough about it to have any cause for concern. But it's extremely common for there to be silicons in both shampoo and conditioner, and they are plastic derivatives. They don't.
To thicken it up or something?
Yeah, they sort of act as like a lubricant. So, you know, anything with silicon in it often has like a sort of slight, it gives it this viscous sort of feel. And, you know, particularly for products, say, for example, that are to reduce frizz, what it does is it puts a coating on top of the hair, which is why, you know, that sort of that slip that you get with conditioner, that can be achieved with silicon. Actually can also be achieved with plant-based ingredients that mimic silicon. Which is the sort of stuff we use. We use a chia seed extract, which does a really similar thing.
Because I mean, I've always found I've had long hair most of my life, and that is what you want from conditioner, isn't it? You wouldn't be able to get a comb through wet hair without conditioner. As soon as you put the comb through, you put the conditioner on, the comb will go through. And I assumed it was coating the hair in something. I hadn't thought of it being silicone though. Ugh.
Yeah, now we have a blog on our website, which is actually one of our most popular blogs, which talks about what silicon is, how you can identify it in ingredients, and why it's not a great idea for either your hair, actually, or the environment, because it's bioaccumulative. So definitely best to avoid it.
Yes, for sure, definitely. So talking about what your bars are made of and what's in there and what's not in there, can you outline really simply how are your bars kinder for the planet than other bars, but also liquid shampoos, just so people listening get a really clear sort of view of what that is?
Yeah, kinder to your hair, firstly, because they don't have silicon and because they don't use harsh surfactants and because they're pH balanced. So pH balance means it mimics your hair's pH, which means you don't have to wash as often, and your hair will feel incredibly soft. And then the last reason that they're kinder to your hair is the plant-based ingredients that we've chosen to use. So we really zoned in on hair concerns, and we have different products to address different hair concerns, and they use different plant-based ingredients. So like the chia seed that I mentioned earlier. We also have rosemary in our oily hair shampoo. We have some charcoal in there. And if you go onto our website, you'll see a bit more of an explanation of what the various ingredients are. And how is it kinder to the planet? First up, no single-use plastic. You can have a shower without plastic bottles, which is wonderful. Each one of the bars saves 2 plastic bottles, so that's certainly better for the environment long term. And also the ingredients that we chose to use. So the natural colours and the natural fragrances are arguably much kinder to the planet than using synthetic-based ones. And I guess we're really just trying to encourage people overall to look at all of the products that they use in their personal care routine. If you use less products, that is kinder to the planet. I mean, you're creating less waste, and that's better for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. It used to be that you'd go into your bathroom and there'd be bottles for all sorts of different things in there. And over time, I mean, our bathroom in particular, you know, it's really reduced it. I mean, getting rid of toothpaste was great for me. Moving on to tablets, getting rid of shampoo and conditioner bottles, and it just, I don't know, gradually over time it impacts other things, because you think, why am I using this plastic bottle when there's other alternatives for that, you know, and you can't go back either. That's the other thing. It's very hard to go back once you've changed, and it's easier to clean the bathroom. That's another thing. It's easier to clean.
I think it just become, and it's easy to travel. I mean, I find we go away and there's literally, you know, we've got 2 tiny little tins with bars in them, and that's enough for both of us for a month or something. You don't have to carry all this heavy liquid shampoo around and so on.
That's really true. That's really true. That's a big one, I think. So you mentioned this sort of self-care and trying to encourage people to look at their sort of self-care routines, etc. But you've really, and you said you're not a beauty person, although I must admit I would challenge the fact you say you're not a chemist with all the stuff you've been coming out with in the last 10 or 15 minutes. But how has it been sort of breaking into that industry? Because it's a very complex industry, isn't it? We've got big brand names, we've got very expensive, I don't know what you call them, niche products where people are charging 50 quid for things, for a bottle of cream or something like that. How do you break into that industry?
Yeah, I agree. It's a really difficult and challenging industry because it's incredibly crowded. The barriers to entry are both high and low in some ways. It's really interesting. You can create a product. You obviously need to have it safety assessed. So there's a barrier to entry, but then perhaps you can go and sell it at your sort of local market or something like that. So that's a relatively easy thing to do. But if you're thinking about the industry as a whole, it's dominated by really large multinational FMCG conglomerates, the likes of the sort of Unilever, Procter and Gamble, and so on. And most of the products that you see in a supermarket are sold by them because they have multi-brands beneath those umbrellas. And that makes it incredibly difficult for a small brand to actually really penetrate anything of scale. So we have niche, we're in a niche, we're a sustainable hair care brand that only does solid hair care. I mean, we've really narrow, I guess, group of customers, but we also have an incredibly loyal group of customers. So we've worked hard to make sure that we're actually keeping the relationship going with those customers, making it easy for people to repurchase. So we've set up things like subscriptions and so on that make it easy to, if you need a bar every 4 or 5 months, then it literally just turns up on time. And I guess I've tried really hard from a networking point of view to understand the industry a bit more. I've become a member of the Cosmetic Executive Women Association. I'm straddling both sustainability and beauty, and there are some places where those things intersect, and certainly getting to know some other founders who also run sustainable beauty businesses has been really helpful, collaborating with them. And that helps spread the message because we're all talking to kind of the same customers about more or less the same sorts of things. And that's been quite helpful as well. But I wouldn't say we've necessarily broken into the industry. I'd say that we're nibbling away at the edges of it.
Yeah, but there's big barriers there. I mean, obviously you mentioned loyal customers, but really you want to be on shelves, don't you? You want to be on shelves in supermarkets, well, or whatever, shops of some sort. You want to be in hairdressers, you want all of that stuff. And how hard has it been and how far along have you got with that purpose?
Yeah, it's interesting that certainly on the wholesale front, we had a couple of years, kind of 2020, 21, 22. And we got a huge number of wholesale orders from zero waste stores, sustainable businesses, and so on. And yes, in the sustainable sort of beauty space. But sadly, I'm sure that most of your listeners would know, lots of zero waste stores and physical retail have closed in the UK in the last 18 months. And with that, a big chunk of our wholesale opportunity has vanished. And so that's a real shame, actually, that those shops, which, I mean, I love going to my local refill store. It's a real shame that a lot of those stores have disappeared. So we've struggled with that. We did decide that we needed to sort of push ourselves sort of further out into, more direct to consumer. And so we have been working on that pretty hard. And some overseas. I mean, we listed with a retail in Hong Kong. But it's a really competitive and challenging market to make headway when you have, well, the combination of cost of living crisis together with your main core wholesale customers being under enormous amount of pressure and actually going out of business. So we just, I guess, keep working with new and different people to try and basically spread the message further and further. And keep the customers that we have.
And you've done, we've obviously came across each other. I think we met through Ethical Hour, but then we came across each other again as we were both on the NatWest Business Accelerator.
Yes.
Did you find that a useful one?
Yeah, to some extent. I think it might have been more useful to us actually earlier on. So by the time I joined the NatWest Accelerator, we were already up and running. I've got a business background, so while I don't have a hair care background, I know how to run a business. So all of the operational side of things has actually been probably my strength, frankly. So that side of our business worked really well. And so I definitely found some really good connections through NatWest, working with a couple of people who I'm still working with now. And I would say I'd recommend it actually for anybody who's starting out a small business, because it's tough when you're at home on your own or in your office on your own, starting out and having a network that you do instantly get with something like any type of accelerator is really valuable for new ideas, for the people that you meet, maybe even challenging some of your own preconceptions.
For sure. And you also won the Theo Paphitis.
I did.
Small business thing as well, didn't you?
So I entered SBS, oh gosh, probably 2020, I think it was. And I was lucky enough to get a stand at Autumn Fair in 2021, which was the first.
I was so jealous of that.
That was a really good experience. Our first ever trade fair. I mean, never done a trade fair before. We're like, right, okay, you've got to learn a lot around getting yourself prepared for that. And that was a fabulous experience. It was the first of the NEC fairs, I think, after COVID. So the footfall wasn't fantastic, but what it did do was prepare us. We exhibited the following year actually at the Natural Beauty Expo in London at the Excel Centre, and in comparison to the stress and shall we say just general kind of like unknown factors in the first time round, second time round I knew what I was doing. It was a lot easier.
Yeah, that's most things in life, isn't it? You do it once, it's terrifying. You do it the second time, it's easy. Well, not easy, but yeah, for sure.
You're like, God, why was that so hard? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've applied several years for that Autumn Fair thing. I never managed to be successful. So when you got it, I was but I was very keen to see how you got on there, because it's supposed to be a fabulous way to meet wholesale customers, isn't it? Because you get a real chance to get your products in front of them, which is great.
Yeah, and we got customers from that. We actually got a couple of overseas customers from the Natural Beauty one. So, and they're not people that we would have found, they found us. That was why it was such a valuable experience. It's all good for profile raising.
It is. I mean, I was going to say, I think PR and marketing is something that many small businesses, including mine, struggle with, because if you are a very small team trying to compete on social media with people who are paying a fortune for advertising, with people who are out there selling the whole time, it's very hard, to actually compete in that environment with the others, and sometimes you're just not seen, like Google searches and things like that, you're just not seen. So it used to be that having an online brand would give you a parity with the others, but I think now with algorithms and advertising, that's kind of gone away a bit, and it is quite hard to be found, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. Is one of the things that we worked on. So, when COVID hit, we were not prepared for hoping. No one was really, were they? So, but I knew nothing about direct to consumer. And I actually started working with somebody during 2020 who helped me a lot with SEO. And that has been an incredible, it's been fantastic for us, because we were concentrated on providing content on our website that is over and above just the products, but things that people want to know about. How do I use a shampoo bar? Is there palm oil in shampoo? The thing about silicons. And that has driven quite a significant amount of our traffic, obviously organically then, which we don't have to pay for, and continues to. So it actually helps new customers find us, is the depth of the SEO. And because SEO takes quite a long time to actually bring the rewards, it really, I'm very glad that we did it a long time ago. We're still getting traffic from a blog that we wrote 3 or 4 years ago, and I keep updating it. I've become a bit of an SEO geek, actually, as a result.
To speak to you offline.
I find it really interesting, because I think people's purchasing habits have changed, how they find new brands. I do agree about social media. Really hard as a small brand to punch above your weight on social media. And I quite like the idea of people coming to us on content-driven blogs where they think we're actually adding value. We're not just trying to flog a product. We've got something interesting to say. They'll learn something, and then they say, okay, these people are credible. Yeah, therefore I might consider buying
Agreed.
their product.
I think it's basically back to the relationship-based selling, so that you're sharing your knowledge and your experience, and it's not just buying something just off the shelf or something, although you need that off the shelf thing, but it's nice to have that feeling that someone's connecting with you a little bit deeper than just that.
Yeah.
And it's not just on price then as well, because I think price is a key thing that we need to talk about, because I don't think people always understand that when you're paying a bit more for a product, what that means. They're comparing like for like. Whereas, I mean, what price is your shampoo bars and conditioner bars now?
So that we haven't put our prices up since we launched. So they're still £12.50 for an 85-gram shampoo bar. And as I said, it depends obviously on how often you wash your hair and how long your hair is and so on. But typically, the average based upon our customers' purchases, a shampoo bar lasts 3 months, and a conditioner bar somewhere between 4 and 6.
I would say more. But
yeah, and you say more, probably a bit more for me, but they're clearly, I can see our customers, and I've really dug into this data, so I know how often people repurchase. We have some people that purchase like every month, but maybe they go to the gym every day and wash their hair every day, which I don't do. So
I think families, if you're using one bar in a family, then it's hard to judge, isn't it?
Yeah, but also if you look at it from a price per wash basis, that's when, yes, it might be upfront. Clearly, it's more expensive than a Tesco shampoo, but that's that's ingredients and distribution and so forth. But on a price per wash basis, it's good value for money, because if you don't have to wash your hair as often, yay, most people are quite happy about that, and you find that you're actually got a bar. If your bottle of shampoo lasts you sort of 3 to 6 months, you're probably about a similar amount of time.
I agree. I think it's something in the sustainability world, isn't it? That so many things. I mean, for my own example, where does it come from? Clothing. people will go, oh my goodness, that's £65 for a shirt. That's a lot of money for a shirt. And like you, we've never put the prices up on a lot of the products. But they're thinking of that first buy. They're not thinking of what's gone into it, the work that's gone into it, and how long it's going to last them, and how much better it's going to be all around. And I think for the people who do become your loyal customers and come back again and again, they do get that. It's just that barrier of the first comparing, I don't know, a Sainsbury's 2 shirt with the where does it come from shirt. There's going to be a significant price difference, but you're getting something so much, I would say, better, but certainly more long lasting and better for the planet and all of those kind of things. But it's the same, isn't it? It's the same if you go and buy a bottle of shampoo, or even a cheap shampoo bar that's similar to those bottles of shampoos in terms of ingredients, and that you've found out already a lot of people don't think work. Then it's not comparing like for like. And I think people need to understand that you're making a bit of a commitment, but the payback is a lot longer.
Yeah, and I would also say that so much of the feedback that we get is that people say their hair feels amazing. It feels healthy. My hairdresser's always almost like laughing at me. He's like, "Your hair's incredible! Like it's thick and healthy." And we were discussing the other day, blow drying it with curly, whatever. And he's like, and I said, I don't like putting product on my hair. Like I'll wash it, put a bit of conditioner in it, maybe put a bit of leave-in conditioner. So just put the conditioner bar kind of on there and stop it frizzing. I never use anything else at all. And he's like, what? No other masks? I'm like, no, don't need to.
No, is that exactly right? Because I sometimes I like temporary colours, so I'll put a bit of plum or something like that in my hair. My hairdresser says, how come they're not washing out? How come you've still got the temporary colour in that you put in 3 months ago? And I was like, because I only have to wash my hair once a week, So like, I can't believe it. We're losing hairdressers' money. Sorry, hairdressers.
Yes.
Can't do all of these things. But yeah, no, I agree with you about how it feels as well. And people always say to me about really soft hair, but
feels soft
not
and
needing
shiny.
stuff to give it body either, because that's the other thing. I must admit, I hope my son doesn't listen to this. I do occasionally use his spray. He has a salt spray thing that he uses to,
yes.
what young boys are like, they like to have all the hair at the front now. So I do sometimes use that just for, I quite like it. It's just quite nice. But in general, nothing at all, which is good. Naked hair, which is always a good one. So the last area I was going to move into a little bit more was the whole thing around the climate crisis, which obviously you and I and many like us and many of the listeners are well aware of. So there are being changes, and we might potentially, hopefully, fingers crossed, get a new government who is going to look a little bit harder at the climate situation and some of the regulation around that. But even so, even outside of the UK, there's emerging regulation around greenwashing, around supply chains, and having to disclose information about the chemicals you're using and the way that you're working with different supply chains all the way along, people affecting people. How do you think that will affect the sort of more traditional hair and beauty manufacturing of some of those big organizations that you're talking about? And do you think it will help people move more towards things that they understand a little bit more about what's in them and where they come from?
I mean, I certainly hope that it helps educate people and make them more aware of greenwashing. I mean, that a number of large multinational brands have faced sort of, I guess, significant pressure, shall we say, in investigations around some of their greenwashing claims. I mean, I often see things that I would say are, borderline greenwashing around, particularly this is recycled plastics, probably one of my biggest bugbears. Plant-based ingredients, but failing to mention that there's still a significant amount of non-plant-based ingredients. So I think those things are helpful. Because what it overall does is it raises the awareness, because those things are becoming a mainstream topic of conversation, aren't they? I think that's a good thing. We manufacture all of our products in the UK, which we decided to do because that means that we can have a greater degree of transparency. It's incredibly challenging as a small brand to have full ingredient transparency. We know who we source from. and we get what are called safety data sheets with them, which has information about the origin of it. But to get past that, really, really difficult unless you're sourcing the ingredients. But if you're using a UK-based manufacturer, then you've also, I guess, you've got the regulatory environment here that's helpful, certainly from a wage perspective, those types of things. So we source or have our products manufactured here. We also have our packaging printed in the UK for similar reasons, and then we work with a carbon balance printer. So we've done as much as I feel we can, given our size, to understand where everything comes from that we're basically selling. I think if consumers get information from a trusted source, you have to work hard to build trust, then it's more believable, isn't it, as well? But I do think the legislation change, certainly in the UK anyway, I think we're pretty good with stuff like that, in terms of calling out greenwashing and so on. I hope it means that people think a little bit more next time they kind of reach for, I don't know, their Tesco shampoo. What's really in this product? Am I being sold something that isn't true?
Yeah, and interesting what you just said earlier on about how much of the shampoo is water. So on the label, that would appear as aqua, would it?
Yes,
So
yes.
next time you're buying your liquid shampoo, just have a look at the percentage of aqua in that, and bear in mind that you're pouring aqua on your head at the same time. I think that's a
Well, the
good.
thing is, I mean, by law, all cosmetics should have the ingredients listed on the box of the bottle. It's listed in descending order, so obviously the highest, but it doesn't show you what the percentage is.
Okay.
So can you imagine, if you had a bottle of shampoo in the supermarket and it had like a line across that says 80% water, no one would buy it, would they?
No, they wouldn't. Bizarre. Are there any real nasties for people to look out for when they're buying their standard shampoos?
I would say the silicons. You don't need them, and they're really bad for the environment. So they should be avoided. And probably the most common silicon is called dimethicone. If you look at ingredients on the list that have cone at the end, that's usually a good clue that it's a silicon. Not in every case, but I'm just saying a really easy way to identify them. So you look at the list of ingredients on your shampoo and conditioner. Some very well-known brands out there, they have silicons in them. You just Google that word and you'll see that it's a silicon. So I would say that's the first thing I try and avoid. A second thing I would try and avoid, and this is really hard to do, synthetic fragrances. There's a huge amount of scientific studies about the links between synthetic fragrances and, I guess, a series of different type of health concerns. And it's not just me exaggerating this. You simply just don't need them because natural fragrances are delightful and available. And in actual fact, in many cases, you don't need fragrance really at all.
No.
So doing what you can to avoid synthetic fragrance, that's usually listed as parfum, PARFUM.
Okay, interesting to know. And what about palm oil? You mentioned palm oil before.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that there are arguments from both perspectives, aren't there, about the fact that palm oil, we don't use palm oil because, as I said, we don't have to. And typically palm oil is used because it's cheap. Why is it cheap? Because of deforestation. I don't want to really be linked with deforestation. I don't want our brand to be linked with that. It's pretty common in shampoo, really hard to spot because there's a significant number of ingredients that are derived from palm oil. So the only way you can be sure that a brand does not use palm oil is that they say that they don't. Because if they're silent on it, it's almost certain. Oh, sorry, someone's at my door. God, sorry, Joe.
No, you go because I can edit it out.
Okay, give me 1 second. Hello. Oh, just a second.
Sorry.
All
I
right, no,
thought,
it's fine. I can edit it out. If you, when you're ready, just go from, I think the last thing you said that I'll edit at the end, the edit out,
Mhm.
it's very hard because lots of things derive from palm oil. So just take it from there.
Yeah, so it's really hard actually to identify whether palm oil is in not just a shampoo, actually in a biscuit or anything else, because there are so many ingredients. Actually, could we stop? I ran up the stairs.
Ah, yes.
Hang on.
Good
Just
for your
need to
steps.
catch my breath.
Good for your
Okay.
steps.
Yeah. I realised I was like,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, because it'll sound, I know on a recording, it'll be able to
It'll
hear
be
me.
different.
Okay. Okay, hold on 1 second. Okay, I'm ready. Can you ask me the question again?
So you were saying that it's quite hard to identify what palm oil derivatives might be in a product.
Absolutely, it is. Palm oil is, I mean, it's in so many things, really hard to identify because it doesn't always just say palm oil. So, in even biscuits or in shampoo, many of the ingredients are actually derived from palm oil. So, a clue can be certainly in food based products, vegetable oil, find out what the source of the vegetable oil is, the specific, because that's obviously such a generic phrase. In the case of shampoo and conditioner, probably the best way to check is to actually ask the brand or see what they say on their website. It's very common in solid shampoo and conditioner because there's a particular, how would you describe it, like a cosmetic base that's used by a lot of companies. And that cosmetic shampoo bar base has palm oil in it. And you'll see it as polyglycerol laurate 5 written on the ingredient list. Not something that you'd think, oh, that's obviously palm oil, but that's actually what it is.
That's it. But then palm oil itself is not a bad thing, is it? It's just how it's been. It's like so many things in this world. I mean, cotton springs to mind, obviously, for me. Cotton itself, not bad, but the way that people farm it and use it and exploit the environment for it. I believe palm oil is the same. It's not the palm oil that's bad, it's how it's farmed.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're completely correct. It's deforestation, and it's also, I guess, the deforestation is linked in a lot of cases to slavery or enslavement, or certainly very poor working conditions for the workers because of the countries that palm oil is typically farmed in. I mean, it's a murky world, all of those sorts of things. We chose not to use it because, as I said at the outset, we didn't need to. So why would we pick an ingredient that is, I guess, linked to deforestation and linked to human rights abuses when we didn't need to? And actually, another ingredient that we chose not to include is really common in cosmetics is mica, because the supply chain is really murky, and that supply chain is often linked with slavery in India. And I just thought, I don't need to use that for our colouring, so we won't use it because that minimises the risk that we could be doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, I think that's it. If you can take a sort of strategic decision about, I've had to make very similar decisions myself, so about I won't source from particular countries or whatever, not because I'm saying that everything about that is bad, but sometimes, as you say, the efforts to get through the murk, if you can avoid it altogether, is actually, it's easier and better all around. I mean, there are companies that say they use responsibly sourced palm oil, so that would be an interesting one for people if they're interested, but I think I don't know enough about it to say. But if you don't need to use it at all, why use it? That's the point.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we decided to make that decision.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I think it'll be fascinating. You were talking before about companies saying that they're using sustainable ingredients and then not talking about the maybe not quite so harmless ingredients and sustainable ingredients that they're using. I mean, again, that there's real parallels there with the fashion industry, where someone might say this is made of 25% organic cotton, and you think, well, what's the other 75%? So there's those kind of issues that I would urge people listening to think about. Is what is the rest of it made of? A lot of the websites try and greenwash by drawing attention to what they see as a positive.
Yes, it's sort of greenwashing by omission, isn't it?
Exactly. And I think that's really important. I think one thing with the beauty industry, and this is something where I'm showing my ignorance, there's been a lot of talk in recent years about parabens and things like that. I'm presuming that's something that doesn't even go on your radar because you just wouldn't consider it.
Yeah, and parabens are a type of preservative, and there's, again, like many things, there's people that have contradictory views about whether they're good or bad for you. We don't need to use them because a solid product doesn't need a preservative in the same way that a liquid product does. So just, I guess, a very simple explanation is, if you imagine your 80% water product, any type of mold bacteria can grow in water, particularly non-sterile water. But in order to prevent that microbial growth, it has to have a really strong preservative in it. Whereas something that is waterless, so the bar doesn't contain any water, it's all solid ingredients, it won't grow mold or bacteria. You don't need any type of preservative. Now, actually, we do have a preservative in there, but it's a plant-based one, only as an extra precaution, because people might, say, leave the bar and it get a bit soggy. So it might have a bit of water on it, but actually, parabens, no need for them. I guess so it's interesting, that whole sort of demonization of ingredients.
Yeah, it is. As you see on some boxes, that's the only reason I really know about it. It says paraben free on things. You think, oh, okay.
Yeah, but I reckon 99% of people don't even know what that means.
No, and here's one of them. Yeah, well, I know more now. No, that's really interesting. Thank you. I feel like I'm learning so much just having the conversation. So really, that I was going to say over to you now, Sue. Is there anything else you feel we haven't covered that you would like to share with the audience?
Well, all I'd like to say to people is, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. All I'd like to say to people is, have a think about the products that you use every day on your body. Anything that's coming into direct contact with your skin, you ideally want that to be, I guess, as good for you as it possibly can be. And that's probably a great premise to start from. I mean, clearly our mantra is about reducing plastic in the world, but we actually also really wanted a product that is extremely good for people and their hair. And making small changes, not everybody wants to make a change, I guess, to everything in their routine at once, but maybe next time you're running out of shampoo, take a good look at the ingredients on the back of that bottle before you make a decision about what you buy next.
Yeah, I mean, it's breaking out of our habits, which we're all very, very busy lives, and you get ingrained habits that you go back to your online shopping, or you pop to the supermarket and you get the same bottle. But life can be so much better if you occasionally change in a bit of a direction, and it's like during the pandemic, I always say, when we all walked a bit more, when we did things a little bit differently and we all liked it. Would all like it, but most people liked it, that they could hear the birds in the tree, those kind of things. So it's make the step, try the thing, and see what you think about it. I may be biased by the fact that I've been using Kind2 conditioner for a long time now, but I definitely would recommend the conditioner, and I've even bought it for other people as gifts to try and encourage them as well. So especially the teenage
nice
girls well, it's not very nice of me. I believe in it. So for example, teenage girls who are experimenting with their hair, learning about their hair, it's a great thing to start with on that one as well, I would say. So it's a great. So how can people find you, Sue? How can they get in touch, find your website, order from you?
Well, hopefully our SEO is so good that if you type Kind2, all one word with the number 2 in your search bar, we will be the first thing that comes up. So our website is kind2.me. You can buy directly from us. We're on a number of, I guess, well-known marketplaces as well, but the best deals are typically directly from us, because you can also get a first order discount, and we have subscriptions. We have discovery size bars as well. So if you want to try a selection of different shampoos to work out which one is the right one for you, they're miniature, not mini, they're 30 grams, so still sort of 15 washes or so. You can try using that. And then if you're not completely convinced you want to use it on your hair, you can always buy one of the dog shampoo bars and try them on your dog. They're different.
Tell us about the dog shampoo. Where'd that come from?
Do you know, it came because customers asked for it. So many people said, oh, why don't you do a dog shampoo? Literally, it came up again and again. It's a different formulation, as you'd expect. Dogs actually have a different pH for their skin and hair. And we don't include some of the fancier ingredients in the dog. So we don't no chia seed extract in the dog shampoo. And it's the same sort of thing. I mean, one of the things I find fascinating actually is a lot of dog shampoo, liquid dog shampoo, is full of really disgusting, actually, synthetic fragrances that are really strong. So if they're really strong for us, imagine how strong it must be for the dog. So we have a fragrance-free dog shampoo, no added fragrance, which puppies love because it isn't that really awful, overwhelming, strong smell. And we have a neem and lavender dog shampoo, which neem is good for ticks and fleas, natural repellent. So I guess same philosophy around trying to make sure it's a much healthier product. But yeah.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Because I suppose with a dog shampoo, you're aiming actually at, yes, you want the dog to be happy, but you're aiming at the customer, aren't you? So a lot of these companies who are doing the real smelly ones, they're thinking about the customer who's doing it, and they must have some psychological feeling that it's working really well because it smells nice, but actually completely overloading their poor animal with scent and,
Yeah, sensory overload for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Horrible. Whereas and I imagine for a dog having a sort of lather up and everything must be quite traumatic as it is. So
yeah, some dogs certainly don't like it. But yeah, and it's easier to use, dog shampoo by you hold it in your hand and kind of rub it on the dog, so you're not sort of juggling dog, bottle, etc., etc.
Yeah, interesting. I have to think about Christmas gifts for my dog owner friends. Anyway, so you've told us where to. I got distracted onto dogs there. You've
That's
told
right.
us where people can find you. So any other last messages to the audience, and I'll sign us off.
Just make the switch to solid shampoo. You won't look back.
Excellent ending. Thank you so much, Sue, for joining me on the Where Does It Come From podcast.
Thank you so much for asking me, Jo. It was a pleasure.
Pleasure for me too.